There's a lot of reasons to raise your own meat: cost, taste, health, and even cruelty. But would you like the meat you raise for yourself? It tastes very different than what you find in the supermarkets. I'm about to process my goat, if I haven't already, depending when this video airs. Now, this is a intact male goat, about a year old, and a lot of people say the meat won't be very tasty, and other people say that it tastes just fine. I do know that homegrown meat tastes very different than what you'd find in the supermarket, and not everybody likes it right away. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that in this video. Now, this goat will be my third type of homegrown meat. I started off with rabbits, and then I had some chickens, and finally this goat. And after this, I can move on to some pork. People who are used to meat from the supermarket, they throw around the word gamey a lot. And I'm not sure that people even know what that means, and they use it as a bad word sometimes. I heard one person describe a beer as tasting gamey. But that just means it tastes like wild game, like a wild animal. It's a very meaty flavor, as opposed to something like boneless, skinless chicken breast that you buy in a supermarket, which is the least meat-tasting meat out there. It's so unmeat-like that people can fake it with tofu and other vegetable proteins. I spoke with somebody who had first-hand experience with a chicken farm, an industrial-scale chicken farm. And she was telling me that, of course the chickens are all raised in cages, a lot like veal, so small of a cage they can't really move. That keeps the meat tender. And they take a hot iron and burn off the tip of their beak so they can't peck at each other. And they're pretty much force-fed food to make them gain weight as quick as they can. Now, you can buy cage-free chicken, but that's kind of a marketing term. While the animals aren't technically in cages, they're packed so tightly on the floor that they really can't move much either. Now, think of that what you will. My point is, it's just not practical to do on your little homestead. I suppose you could raise chickens and rabbits in cages like that, but cages are expensive. To try to duplicate that on a homestead, we're encouraged to also harvest very young. Rabbits should be harvested like 8 to 10 weeks, which is just out of nursing. Maybe 12 weeks for a young goat. And this keeps the meat tender and milder tasting. I usually don't do it because the animals are quite small at that point. You don't get much meat out of that animal. You might get half a pound or 3/4 of a pound of pure meat off of a 8-week rabbit. So I let them get a little bit older. Another piece of advice for rabbits is to soak the meat in ice cold water for a couple hours, pull out all the blood. I did that. I did not notice it affecting the taste at all. But I did harvest my rooster, who was about a year old at the time, and the meat was quite dark. The breast was the color of dark meat that you'd get in a supermarket, and the dark meat was more like dark turkey meat or even red meat. It was a very colorful meat, and the taste was closer to turkey than chicken you'd buy in the supermarket. But I liked it. I liked the taste of my rabbits. I liked the taste of my chicken. When I go to the supermarket now, I usually don't buy the chicken breast. If I need chicken, I'd buy chicken thighs. So I've already switched over my flavors. I appreciate the more authentic flavor of the meats. If you can't picture it and you're curious to what it would taste like, you could try a authentic Mexican restaurant or another ethnic restaurant. I'm not worried about my goat meat tasting bad. I'm not going to make a steak out of him or pork chops. I guess it'd be goat chops and pieces of meat like that. I will likely slow cook it and make, shredded meat, pulled goat, or grind them up into sausage and things like that. I know goat curry is very popular, and like adobo sauce and things like that, or dicing it up and putting it into a chili. And that's the best way to eat meats on a homestead. Things like that, slow cooked, diced up in soups and stews and flavorful sauces, and it will even out any flavors you may have, any varieties of flavors or textures and things like that. Now that brings me to the other point, which I have noticed. Homegrown meat is not really tender, especially if you let the animals get older. When they want tender meat, they keep the animal from moving around too much. They harvest them very young and keep them from moving. When you build up muscle fiber, that's pretty tough meat. They say age the meat in your refrigerator for a couple days to let the meat fibers relax before you cut it up. I may give that a try. I haven't noticed a lot of these tricks working, but that's what they recommend. If you're very particular in your meats, you might not like your homegrown meat flavor, or you may have to adapt. I had a friend who would not eat meat off the bone, would only eat boneless meat, because the bone imparted too much flavor to the meat and made it taste gamey, as he said. Just something to be aware of. You may want to test it out. Go check out a local ethnic restaurant or butcher and see if you like it before you invest in raising all these animals. Before I go, I'd just like to ask you to please hit the like and follow and subscribe and share this video to anybody you think would enjoy it. I really appreciate it. It helps out the channel a bunch. My name's Joe. This is my channel, Off-Grid Solitude. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.